Welcome to Wildfire. I'm Denby Sheather, and this is midlife medicine for women on the rise. Here, we believe your body isn't burning out, it's burning through. I speak with healers, teachers, and medicine women who walk this path alongside us. And once a month, in our Wisdom in the Room segment, I sit with real, ordinary women whose stories are the medicine. No pedestals, no credentials required, just truth. So, let's light it up. Now, today's guest is someone whose work lives right at the intersection of art, soul, and the liberation of the feminine voice, and whose personal story of perimenopause is one of the most honest and moving that I have encountered. Kate Whelan is a sacred guide, multidisciplinary artist, trauma-aware facilitator, and creator of tools for awakening. From guided journals and affirmation decks to original music, books, and art that activates. For over 20 years, she has led children, teens, and adults through expressive arts, somatic wisdom, and soul-deep emotional work, helping them remember the voice, the truth, and the spark they buried to survive. At the core of everything Kate does is one thing: liberation. From the stories, the systems, and the silences that have kept too many women dimmed and disconnected for far too long. And I have to say, having spent time with her book this week, I came away feeling seen in ways I didn't expect, which tells me everything about the kind of conversation we are about to have. So, Kate, welcome to the fire.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, and I was just tearing up listening to all that you just shared and just the space that you're creating here for women
Thank you.
to be seen and to be heard. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Pleasure, darling. And that's your fault too for writing such a beautiful book. All good. So before we talk about where you are now, very different story, I'd like to go right back to the beginning, to the girl you once were, and her relationship to her body. And in the book, you speak about getting your cycle at 11 and not even knowing what it was. Can you take us back to that moment? What was that girl's relationship to her own body?
Oh, wow. That's a long time ago now. And when I think back, the first time that I got my cycle, I remember we were down at Ocean Grove. Our family had this caravan down there. We'd go every year, and so we're at the end of year school holidays down at Ocean Grove, and I must have gone to the toilet and found what I thought was shit stains in my undies, but they were quite large. I was like, wow, that's a lot. And I think when you talk about connection to the body, I even in seeing that in my underwear, those brown streaks, which were obviously, my first period, I A, didn't know what it was, and B, was so disconnected that I just kind of balled the undies up and threw them under the bed and carried on with the next pair of undies until, the same thing happened again the next day or the next time I went to the bathroom, and I just balled them up again and threw them under the bed. Like,
Mm.
it was not only disconnection or like I had no idea what it was, but I was also pretending like it wasn't happening.
Yeah. A very common story, I'm sure, for a lot of women, that weren't, this whole rite of passage, Menashe wasn't probably explained really fully or properly by their mums because they didn't even have the dialogue from learning from their mums as well. It's a systemic, it's the thing in the lineage definitely that has led so many women to not being disconnected from, the rhythm of their cycle, loathing their periods, hiding it up, as you say, and considering it gross almost.
Mm.
Rejecting the feminine body from the get-go. I mean, and I have elements of that in my own story as well. But when you look back now, Kate, what do you think that, and all the wisdom and the experiences that you've had now, what do you think that disconnection cost you?
Um,
As far as about, knowing yourself and what you feel that you might have lost through that experience or the lack of the experience being connected.
Honestly, I think the pause was just getting the weight of it. Um,
I thought you dropped out for a second then.
no, it was just feeling the weight of it, and the only thing that comes to mind is it cost me everything. It cost me um my journey into womanhood, and it cost me uh my body and the learning how to love myself and learning how to be in relationship to myself so that I could be in healthy relationship to men, for example. Um, yeah, and it's interesting when you were talking just before the question, I was thinking about being 11 and sitting in this mother-daughter night and because when I sort of spoke with my mum about it years later, she's like, "I took you to that mother-daughter night and they talked about it there." And then going on to be a teacher for 20 years, um, I often made the connection that, just because I'm telling a group of students something doesn't mean that they understand it or that they think that it has any relevance to them, because that was my experience. And so, but what I did was, in continuing to avoid myself and my own body and my own experiences, um, put all of that focus out there onto, the young people or to the relationships that I was in. And yeah, it cost me myself.
Yeah, that's intense, isn't it? And I'm sure a lot of women will be able to relate to that because it's setting the foundation for, the most important relationship that we have in our lives, and that's the relationship with ourselves, as you well know.
Yeah.
Um, in your book, Kate, you write something that I think names what so many women experienced and possibly never had words for. So in relation to this, but also that in regards to relationship with self, not just getting periods, you write that girls were taught to smile instead of speaking, to soften instead of saying no, and to nurture instead of lead. That we were rewarded for being quiet, accommodating, and selfless, not for being honest, powerful, or whole. And then you go even further, you name the colonization as part of this same system of harm, the diminishing of ancient wisdom, the shift from co-creation to domination and control. And this is a big question and a big answer, of course, but it's a big frame. And a big part of my work as well, as you already know, is about, the connecting to the indigenous wisdom that, that we carry in our wombs and every cell of our body as women, and how there's been lots of different forces over many, many decades, centuries, quite possibly, that have been seeking to, erase that wisdom, to separate us from that, which obviously makes the modern woman's journey of reclaim or connecting and reclaiming her body that much harder. So in a woman, what does reclaiming ancient wisdom look and feel like for you practically in a woman's body in her daily life, from what you've experienced personally and what you've experienced with, witnessing other women as well?
Hmm. Um, well, I would say it's largely to do with the creative self-expression, you know, um, It's to do with movement. It's to do with touch. It's to do with, but if we just go back to creative self-expression, I think um, my understanding when my understanding of myself, the loving of myself, the reclaiming deeper truths and messages and parts within myself has been through painting and writing and um, dancing
Yep.
and singing and songwriting. And a lot of the times, my songs will be uh, like visions or prophecies of what came next kind of thing. And the same with the book writing and and it sort of helped me start to realize that I am the one that gets to design this. I'm the one that gets to create it. And the whole creation over consumption, um, connection in with self so that I can, and connection with nature, and so that I can see myself as a part of the whole.
Mm.
And then realizing that not everybody else is doing that work. Not everybody else is making those connections within themselves. Not everybody else is tapping in. But when I went out and worked in remote Indigenous communities, that was just so organic. It was just natural. It was just a part of everyday life. And I was like, I'm home.
Yeah, it's very freeing, isn't it? It's just like you sort of look around and go, duh, like that this totally makes sense, you know. Why didn't I get here to this spot earlier? You know, but I mean, timing, of course, is all perfect with that.
Yeah. And even just like sitting down and having a cup of tea in silence, just
Mm.
the simple things.
Yeah.
I think it's the distraction and the consumption and the bombardment that we are receiving that really is what's taking us away from our connection to that ancient wisdom and a connection to the women before us. And I just sat in the shopping centre and I was drawing on this big A3 piece of paper, and I was listening to this group of women and I was adoring them. They were all clearly in their 70s and they were dressed beautifully with their full makeup on, and they were sitting there and I'm doing my little drawing on the other table, and I could hear them and they were gossiping. They were gossiping so hard about stuff. And I thought, I just noticed the conversation in my own head. It's like, oh, they're gossiping. And I know I've done a lot of training around gossiping, and I find it to be something that keeps us very small, and it's something that keeps us to be very disconnected from our ancient wisdom.
Yeah.
And I noticed that, oh, but you shouldn't disrespect, like even just having the thought and wanting to write about it and wanting to speak about it and realizing that, oh, but if I ever said anything like that in the past, especially in front of, I don't know, family or what have you, um, it's yeah, it's like don't do that, or
Mm.
don't think that, or don't observe that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's staying small, really being trained to stay small and I mean, when you were saying the part before that, before you mentioned the women at the table gossiping, I just had this vision of like when you were talking about creative expression. I mean, I remember doing the HSC and I did art, and which you probably did too, and a lot of people did. But back in those days, I sound like my grandma. But back in 1984, yes, when I did the HSC, I was told by my art teacher, like I am really good with pencil, with fine art. My dad. My late dad was an architect and also brilliant with watercolor. My mum is still with us and she's an artist. She's works with oil. I'm really good with charcoal and pen and pencil. And so I wanted to do something like that. And what the topic or the subject that I chose to do, which is this collage of one of the horses that we had actually just bred. I wanted to do the story of the foal to the yearling. And I did a bloody good job, mind you. And she's like, "Oh, you're not going to get the marks. You've got to do this. Choose this subject or this subject matter, or do this, treatment." because they'll mark you up for that, and it's all about getting the marks. And I went away with that for quite a while afterwards. I mean, I got a pretty good decent mark, and I was like, I don't care. I'm doing what I want to do, what I love. Thankfully, growing up in a house full of artists and forward thinkers. But I think a lot of us are probably still carrying a lot of scarring from around even just school, the indoctrination of like, you've got to do this, don't follow your heart, don't fully go into that artistic heart expression. And you being the teacher, of course, would have witnessed a lot more than I have with that, but that just came up when you were saying that. And then the gossiping, yeah, it's gossiping versus storytelling. And the
Yeah,
ancients and the grandmothers and the grandfathers too is all about storytelling and passing on the wisdom. But the modern day version, unfortunately, has turned into gossiping, hasn't it?
that's right. That's right. And gossiping about other people rather than sharing your own experience and the wisdom that you've gained or gleaned from that.
Mm.
And then I think that's also tied into being disconnected from your own creative self-expression, because as I sat there doing my creative self-expression, I'm well, I was doing an intentional activity, but I've also done a lot of art, and I have also provided a lot of young people with the opportunity to create art for the sake of uh, emotional processing or just the freedom to see what happens.
Yeah.
And most of my paintings, emerge that way. But imagine um, if people were actually, and you can process your emotions through painting or drawing or writing or therapy or whatever way, but through the creative self-expression, it's like it comes out from within us, so we're no longer carrying it, we're no longer suppressing it or pushing it into a compartment and walking around with it. It's there on the page. And one of the things that I learned through my own painting was to love myself, even through some of the ugliest artwork I have ever created,
Yeah.
because of the colors, and the patterns, and the fact that other people could come up to a page that just for me just represented like shame vomit on a canvas. They're going, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. We're all self-conscious to a high degree, aren't we? And again, that it's because it is you putting you on the paper. I mean, that's a wonderful process to do, as you say, definitely. But we've also forgotten that we, whether we're male or female, is that we are actually a living, walking work of art, and we've lost connection to that. And
Yeah.
and as you know, perimenopause, or the rite of passage that we've labelled perimenopause and menopause, is everybody's interaction and journey with that, coming to that awareness when obviously the kids are older and life's moving on, and we go, oh, well, what do I want to do now? What is the specific thing that I came here to share? Some
Yeah. And isn't that exciting?
Yeah, well, exciting and a little bit sort of scary, all of that mixed in, a whole lot of other stuff mixed in
I,
together.
yeah, it's interesting because it's scary when it's me, but when I think about other people doing it, I get excited for them.
It's good. And they look at you like cross-eyed. Like, hang on a minute.
I know. Where are you coming from? But I've been speaking to so many women recent times, and they're all at different stages of their life journey, and they're all at different stages of their reclamation journey. Some are deep in dysfunction, and some are like nearing the end of their life, and they're like, I'm reclaiming it. I don't care if I'm in my 70s. So I think we've been sold just a whole lot of BS about, and I'm sure we're sort of segueing into this part about, the perimenopause part of my journey, but just like this rush, like, oh no, it's all coming to an end. My youth, my beauty, my this.
Yeah, yeah. I've got to get the latest potion, as you mentioned in the book as well. I've got to get the latest thing that I can slap on my skin or, insert somewhere or ingest, in this quest to remain, socially acceptable as either valid or attractive or viable or whatever. I mean, we all go through our own version of that. Um,
yeah, just realizing like I've never felt valid to myself.
mm.
And so that's where the sacred no has really kind of it's hit on so many from so many different angles for me. And I'd love to know, I mean, obviously you've gone through the book and things, but I'd love to know from you, like when you think about the sacred no.
Well, that's a whole nother podcast altogether. It's deep, and the yes and the no, for women and the way that I teach, yeah, is like, I mean, even by learning even how to say no, you're saying yes to something else, and vice versa. When you say yes to something or someone, you're saying no to something else or another version of yourself. And we're all making choices with the level of discernment that we have and the level of embodiment we have at every time, aren't we? Like when we swallow our truth or express it, we're viewing things as change as either a failure. We have this built-in sort of propensity or tendency towards failure or success, a fear of failure, a fear of success, depending on
Mm,
what's going on different levels in our lineage stuff. And I mean, there's so many different layers to it. But for me, it's just and we'll get to that now if that's okay, Kate, talking about the grief of the pregnancies that didn't come to term and the relationship that you had with your body. And for me, I really related with that part of your story. Obviously, where you're speaking about you weren't prepared for perimenopause, but from the very beginning as well, your relationship with your body and the body remembering every betrayal of worth that we carry in our physicality and our symptoms. If we had have learnt how to say no, or or at the same time yes when we were younger, we I mean, it would have been a totally different journey, which means not to say that our journey has been wrong in any way, because I don't believe that. It's everything happens when it's meant to for us.
mhm.
A lot of women relate to that. So, from that understanding that you have, and that sacred no, because I want, I could go on for ages, and this podcast is about you and your amazing work. But what I really got from that was I was touched by the sensitivity, the rawness of you putting yourself on paper, and I totally relate to that as an author myself, and having written several books and expressed my views, shall we say, lightly in the last couple of years that have been accepted and loved and embraced by many, but also criticized and chastised by many others as well. There's
Mhm.
there's a deep grief, isn't there, that comes when we move through that portal and that rite of passage when we're younger, without the support that our ancestors definitely walked the young women through. What can
That's right.
Yeah, so can you tell me what that grief was actually about for you when you were, if you want to touch on that? I mean, it's in the book as well. The pregnancies that didn't come to term, and the sense of how you felt the aloneness and that relationship, how that again shifted your relationship with your body, which was, as you've already established, already pretty tentative.
Mm. Yeah, well, there's a lot in there and there's a lot of years in there, but I would say, I had two pregnancies when I was younger, that were, one of them was with a one night stand, um, and one of them was with another guy who was a raging alcoholic. And, you know, before you asked me about what does that disconnection to my own body cost me, I remember falling pregnant the first time when I was in Kakadu National Park. I was living and working out there, and this random traveler that I had met, that I ended up sleeping with, we were born on the same day, and then he left the next day. He went on his travels, and about a week later, I started dreaming of the face of this child, and then found out that I was pregnant,
Wow.
and yeah, then I sort of reached out to my support systems, and they're like, "Oh, well, we'll have to go and have an abortion." But I mean, the thing that really stands out for me from around that time of age 27 was that I had no agency. I had no, I was outsourcing.
Yep.
What am I going to do? Like, hello, you're a 27-year-old woman. You you make your own choice what to do. But I just didn't even understand that for some reason. And then 7 years later, similar sort of situation happened, and I found myself at a crossroads because I was 34 by then, and I was like, wow, this could be my last. I had no one to talk to be honest, about all these things.
Yeah.
And at that time, I got put in touch with this amazing Jungian analyst, um, and started having cognitive behavioral therapy with her. And she's been a constant in my life for the last 14 years.
Yep.
Um, and then at 42, I fell pregnant just with a man that I'd known for a few years, and I, even though he was he's a bit of a dud as well, but I decided that I was going to go through with the pregnancy, and then on my 42nd birthday, found out that the pregnancy wasn't viable, and shortly after that, I went out to the desert and started teaching out bush, and my period started coming intermittently. And look, not to step over it because those were massive events in my life that I think I just buried and kept on with. I just buried and kept on going, buried, kept on going.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until years, decades later, when I started writing The Sacred No, that all of these things from the past started resurfacing, all of that disconnection, all of the possibilities, the babies that didn't come, and then stepping into the perimenopause and my period only coming once every 9 months, and knowing that there's nothing wrong with me. I knew there was nothing wrong with me, but I also felt that sense of, oh my goodness, I still need to have children. Like it's slipping away from me. And then I was like, God's punishing me you know, for not being connected to myself, or for not seeing myself as the sacred, you
Vessel.
know,
Yeah.
vessel that I am.
Yeah.
Um, so I was out bush, and I just remember, having this period of like 3 months. It hadn't worked out with this last guy, and I was just, yeah, I was just crying. I was crying every night. It was like this deep guttural crying. It was like soul cries that just was wailing. I mean, it's the only way I can describe it. And it was pretty much every day for 3 months, and there were times where I thought, okay, maybe I need to, am I okay? Like, am I dying? What's going on?
Mm.
Um, and then I think there was a part of me that just knew that my body was grieving. My entire body and soul and everything was grieving. My period was slowly finishing up, and that was that, and in a sense, it was a death, but it wasn't the death that I thought it was going to be. And I didn't realize there was a rebirth on the other side.
Yeah. And that's I'm sure people listening will be able to relate to that because I certainly can, and you've expressed it so beautifully in the Sacred No, the book. And I've just written about it. It's funny, Kate, because when we crossed paths, I literally just written a blog about how being selfish is actually the highest form of self-love.
Mm.
And that we have been taught again as boys and girls that if you care about yourself, then you're up yourself. The old Australian saying.
Yeah.
It was egoic, and you can't be like that. So we learn to suppress ourselves. If we had been, imagine how it would be. Imagine how a whole generation, if not two or three, would be if women, young girls, had been taught to embrace the shame and to transmute that and to realize that loving themselves, self-care is basically the main job for any of us to do while we're here. And the experience in my experience in my practice and with clients over the years, that's why I go back to all of the rites of passage that women didn't receive when they were younger, because it always comes down to, self-sacrifice in some form, and
Mhm.
not believing that we deserve love. And and then from there, obviously, lots of different circumstances. But that when you ask me about what the big takeaway for me I mean, there was lots when I was reading a book, but that was the big one that really stuck with me too, because I'd just been writing about it and going through my own process again with that, refining it as we do. But
Mm.
that's, self-worth and self-love is love in action. That's the medicine. And every time you return to that, as you say, the deep knowing that you are worthy, then that's you unconsciously saying a sacred no to the way that things were before, or the patterns and the stories that you've been carrying that no longer serve you. Yeah.
That's right. And the sacred no to not going for that thing that it is that you really truly want, or sacred no to being cut off from your undeniable sacredness. It's like, wow, because if we look back now as older women, we look back at young girls, we look back at those teenagers. I mean, I know I get to, because I work with young people, but I just look at them and I think, wow, you are so incredibly sacred. And I mean, I look at grass, I look at butterflies, I look at all of it, and I remember that, and it's easy to slip back out of the remembrance of. But I mean, it's only been through this journey and through the depth of pain that I have endured, and the miracle of all the choices that I've gotten to make, being a woman living at this particular time, and being born into the circumstances that I was, that I knew that I had choices, or that I slowly figured it out.
Mm.
Um, and that I educated myself, and that I learned, and I grew, and I discovered my inner world, and I cultivated it, and I trained myself. And I do see that as a privilege, because I know that there are a lot of women out there who are not even aware that they have choices, or perhaps they're not in a position to where they can consciously choose something for themselves for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole kaleidoscope of many different experiences that we wouldn't be able to cover even if we tried really, because everybody's got their own journey there, and so if we sit here in our comfortable, I mean, you're in your car in a car park, I'm at home, but we're essentially, modern day white women in a position of privilege compared to a lot of other women around the world, for example, who are in war-torn countries going through this change of life and seeing their families, destroyed and their culture destroyed and all sorts of things like that. That just, the layers of impact it's hard to comprehend, from our position here. But on a global like energetic scale, as far as women go, it's the self-abandonment, isn't it, really? That
Mm.
and teaching women or showing women, saying that saying no doesn't make you selfish. As you say, it makes you honest, and that honesty builds intimacy with yourself, and that's a process, and that can take, it's like how long's a piece of string? It's going to take not it's not going to take a couple of days or weeks. Most likely, it's going to take several years to get to that part, regardless of what age you are. And I think so many women are still afraid of the no. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Being afraid of the no.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And it's not even, it's not even afraid of the no. Sometimes no is not even a part of a woman's vocabulary.
Mm.
Um, Same with yes. A lot of the times we just kind of go along with things, or, um, but I think past experiences definitely have a lot to do with it, and the conditioning, but also being afraid of, and everything that we're just talking about, it sort of swooshes and swirls around in this idea of, collectivism and every man for himself kind of culture.
Yeah.
It's like, and then obviously being a mother, which I am not, um, you are the one sacrificing a lot of the time mothers are sacrificing for their children, for their families. Um, and this is something that uh, you know is ancient as well.
Mm.
And I've just lost my train of thought, but I'm just wondering why the women are not fully celebrated and honored and cherished in the way that I think we are meant to be. And and I think, yeah, that this fear of being sort of banished from the group, or being, people are going to think you're difficult if you say no, or
Yeah,
just
there's a lot of wounding in the sisterhood, and
yeah.
judgment around that. So not just wounding and assumption and stuff like that, persecution in the family relationship sphere, but then the sisterhood, same with the brotherhood too. There's a lot of stuff that is put under the table, swept under the carpet, all that sort of stuff. So it makes women, as you say, that it's the no and the yes and the no are sort of interchangeable. We haven't been. It depends on how that's been role modeled to us, I suppose, as again as children. But then
Mm,
um, underneath that, there's another layer, as you and I know, and hopefully listeners will get this too, is that you've got to have this sense of and I love how you separate it, responsibility. It's the ability to respond. But if we haven't been, if we can't choose even just in a moment to even contemplate the potential for making a different choice or seeing something, perceiving something differently or taking a different action,
mm.
then that's when we're not going to be able, I mean, we can't even say no on even that smallest quote unquote way and energetic. It's going to be a lot harder for us to take those almost bigger leaps, isn't it? To move, from blame and victimhood into going, well, this is the responsibility of who I am and where I want to go and really embracing and embodying real growth.
That's right. I want to give one example here because it's just right there. But I have a friend that I've known since we were very young, and we played basketball together overseas, and we had this friendship that sort of spanned more than 30 years, and I just always remember having this thing in the back of my mind, like, and this is part of what I'm examining inside of myself at this time as well, is around this. Why am I the one that's always giving? Why am I the one that's always showing up? Why am I the one that's always full present?
Mm.
And it feels like the other person is just getting a free ride
Yeah.
or something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
And I, and because I've trained, and because I've done mindfulness facilitator courses, and because I work with young people, because I work with humans, because I've done, almost 15 years of cognitive behavioral therapy, because I've chosen that path for myself. And so that's why I wanted to show up and be able to show up for people, because of my role and my responsibility, in my job, but also because I wanted to have healthy relationships. I wanted to have reciprocal relationships. And anyway, this one particular friend and I was sitting there having coffee one morning, and I was listening to her sharing about what she was going through, and I was fully present. And then when she'd stopped talking, I'd sort of reflect back to her what I heard, just so that she knew that I was listening. And I remember when I was doing that, and I was consciously doing it as a skill that I was practicing, and maybe I wasn't perfect at it, but I just noticed her attention just wandering off
Mm.
as I was reflecting back to her what I'd heard her say. And I noticed her eye wandering off a number of times while I was talking, like she wasn't with me,
Yeah.
same way that I was with her. And so I just thought, okay, I'm going to get curious here. And I asked her what she was looking at. And she said, I think that girl over there has butt implants.
Oh God.
Now, that was a moment in time for me where I went, we are not the same.
Yeah, no. Not the
And
same
it's not
page.
it's not in a bad way. We have a friendship that has lasted over 30 years, and I really get to stop and question why I am giving that much of my time and my energy and my presence where it's not met, it's not appreciated,
Mm.
and it's reciprocated.
Yeah, and that's a big one for this midlife transition because you get to that point where you just go, you can just see the futility, and it's not coming from a space of like wanting to be angry or animosity or anything like that. It's just the realization of like all people can do is show you who they are, and whether it's a friendship or an intimate relationship or work or whatever, and it's up to you to choose whether you want to just keep flowing along on that trajectory or if you actually want more and want deeper. And there's nothing, there's nothing bad about that, but that we become, it's almost like we become really fine-tuned to see those things, yeah, when we get older.
That's right. And yeah, and it is a choice. And I think also maybe it's because I'm almost 50 that I have the privilege of looking back and going, wow, imagine if when I was 9 or 12, 9 to 12 years old, if I had been taken through a rite of passage, if someone had, um, taken me through the kinds of activities that I take my students through, so that I could get connected to how it feels inside my body when somebody asks me for something, or and whether it's a yes or a no. And, you know, I think I've taken all my life's experiences and my learnings and brought them back to the young people that I work with. And then after working in classrooms for so long, I was just like, I can only reach this group of kids here, right now, and they're going to go back to their families and and so this was kind of like, this is why I had to do the book, because I wanted to reach I wanted to reach the parents, I wanted to reach the teachers, I wanted everyone to know, hey, look, this is important. This
Yeah.
is what we get to gift to our young people, our young girls, our
Yeah.
young.
As the custodians, because we are, and the custodian also has to be in that, my perspective anyway, with my work too. I mean, you have to be able to walk. You got to walk your talk, so you've got to go through those processes yourself,
Mm.
and then become a wisdom keeper of some sorts. So that you're sharing information, and you're again infusing the next part of the lineage, the next generation, with this information, which is unfortunately slowly diluting, and that's across all Indigenous cultures and just across humanity, blanket, I think. The
Mm.
self-worth part, Kate, is a big part. Obviously, self-responsibility, accountability. And you write that the sacred no is not a rejection; it is your long-awaited return to wholeness. And I love that. That's just a brilliant quote. Um, and women obviously have been, many of us have been people pleasers for decades, and we've learnt how to be women from our mums and our grandmothers who were possibly chronic people pleasers as well.
Mm.
So how does using all I mean, people will have to get the book, of course, to see the amazing practices and exercises that you have at the end of the chapters, which helps people integrate. I love that aspect. So what can you say now that to help, how does a woman begin to reclaim her sacred no when decades of people pleasing have made yes feel like the only safe answer, whether they're conscious or not?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just if you're wanting to start with something really, really simple, you can practice mindful breathing,
Yep.
and it's literally just one breath in and one breath out, and
Mm.
one breath in and one breath out. And just paying attention to what you notice, and there's so many different, I mean, you can source these kinds of practices online. You can, but inside the book, I speak about a framework, um and I call it the Sacred No Initiation Framework, but it's a three-part process where we actually start to have a look at, and the the activities inside the book, there's a bonus resource folder as well that actually guides people if you want to do the work by yourself. Some people find that the work is, that they want to do the work, and they want to be supported as they do it. But it is available there for people to start doing that work themselves. And I will, disclaimer, acknowledge, it is not light. It's not light work. So um, I remember having a friend sort of reading through it and going through the exercises, and she really found it quite confronting. She started doing the first exercise, and one of it's about sort of excavating the false yeses, and really getting the cost, because that's what happens when you have a look, when you go back. It's not to relive trauma, it's not to, um, but obviously things come up, and you start to see all the places where and once you start seeing it, it's like you can't unsee it. It's just, oh my gosh, and there, and I'm doing it again over there, and I'm still doing it now.
Yeah, yeah. But that's the healing process that a lot of people don't really sort of comprehend, I think, is that healing is messy and dirty and dark and smelly and, unattractive. It's just like you're in the dirt, you're in the trenches, you're in your shit, basically. And there's a lot of decisions that all of us have made that we need to make peace with and forgive ourselves and that. So I think that, yeah, I mean, it's light, but it's not, it's not light, but it is also light, obviously, on that higher etheric sort of level. This is the deepest work that, excuse me, we can do.
That's right. So there's the excavation, which is, really looking and doing the whole kind of life audit. And then there's and inside of that, you also discover like the masks that you have worn, throughout your life. Um, and then the rewiring is, it's about rewiring for that feeling of calm and safety inside of your own body. I don't know about other people, but for me, because of my false yeses, I've found myself in a lot of situations um, that were very unsafe. And because I had learned to because I was disconnected from my body, I was disconnected from those signals. It was like, and also I was potentially addicted to chaos. So it was kind of like, when the adrenaline was running or the nervous system was going, hey, 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 I was like, whoa, this is what we know. This is what we're good at.
Yeah, not totally. And then that's laying the foundation for all sorts of adrenal issues later and cortisol spikes and things that are very common in perimenopause that go completely out of whack hormonally for women because of those patterns and have never been regulated early on.
Mm. So the regulation piece or the rewiring piece is really around just resting and eating well and nourishing your body, and choosing to do breathing, or choosing to do the creative self-expression, or uh saying what's there to be said, and breathing into that instead of shying away from, like, it's like rewiring yourself for truth, rewiring yourself for authenticity and showing up for yourself. And look, it is it's a beautiful stage or part of the process. And then the final part is the reclaiming, and that is, look, the whole thing is huge. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is a massive process, because I will just speak for myself. I've been so used to downplaying who I am, what I bring to the table. Even though other people will see that and go, really? Like, you've been online and you're always putting yourself out there, and you're making videos, you're doing this and that. But honestly, yeah, that's what it's felt like. It's felt like it's been me. And yes, there are all these external conditions that have made it that way, but it's fully taking responsibility for the fact that it's me, it's my life, it's my choice. Am I going to stay here in the shadows, or am I going to actually fully reclaim it? Am I going to put the book out there? Am I going to make the ads myself and share them? Am I going to talk to Denby Sheather on her podcast? Am I going, regardless of what anyone else might think, or um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And thank God you have, darling, because your words are and your energy and your intention is amazing. And I know there's a lot of people listening to this that will just be going, yes, 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 or no, 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 as well with that. You've got to be brave, haven't you? You've got to be curious.
And you've got to be curious and you've got to be brave. And honestly, there are going to be people, I mean, in putting myself out there, especially around this, topic with the book and everything, there are people that I sped this one video up. I sped it up to 1.5 because I felt like I was talking too slow and I wanted it to be quick and punchy. And somebody replied on, made a comment on it like, oh, watching this video is giving me anxiety. And, you know, I had somebody share like 7 paragraphs of their trauma history on one of my most recent ads. And then I've had other people having a go at me for saying what I'm saying. And um, it's all just a part of the process.
It's
But
just not, it's just noise, really. There's always going to be, what I've learned anyway, if this means it can help in any way, shape, or form, is that if you speak your truth with love, and however that expresses, whether it's in a song or poem or a book or some other dance, whatever that is that there will always be people that will resonate on that bandwidth that will get it and receive it, and others that are just not there yet. And it's not about hierarchy or being better or worse or not ready or not good enough or not, spiritual enough or whatever. It's just like if somebody's story resonates, there's something in their body that has been through that alchemic process as you have, and it will go, oh, it'll, have some, not a trigger, and sometimes a trigger, but it'll have a resonance there in that heart space, because they will recognize that you're walking your talk, not just talking about it. And those who haven't been to that deep space inside themselves yet, in brackets always yet, it's coming for them soon, and that's fine. It's the judgment there, but I totally get how challenging it is, Kate. And the last 7 years now, it's crazy to think we've had 7 years of the world going batshit crazy, basically. But I totally get that when you speak your truth and you get hammered down and how that affects you, and you've got to keep coming back and or retracting yourself, taking pause and making space for yourself to recover and all those things. That's part of the journey that, in my experience for myself, and certainly with other women too that I work with, is part of, like, every part is a stepping stone to building that integrity and that stronger elder you, taking you closer to embodying the full custodian that you are. So it's just like, okay, everything's temporary. That was today. Tomorrow's another day. Keep moving, speaking your truth with love.
absolutely. And reclaiming that inner authority, because, I think in the past I've been very correct, or, I've kept things kind of very light and fluffy on in my sharing on social media. And I know I was in awe of you speaking out way back when, because it was like such a breath of fresh air, and I was just saying yes, yes, I'm with you. But I think that fear, or that I'm in trouble, or it's largely, I think, about the self-doubt, um, and a lack of trust within self, that has had me fearing speaking my truth, or posting something online, or saying what I really think. And that like writing the book really helped me reconnect to that inner author, that inner authority,
Mm,
and to trust that, hey, listen, I'm 48 now. I've already been through all of this stuff, which I've just been, processing as I'm writing and excavating as I'm writing. And I'm like, and I was getting angrier and angrier and burning through, as you said earlier, burning through it all and just being like, fuck this. I am no longer
mm,
going to hold it back. I'm no longer going to hate myself. I'm no longer going to hate my body. I'm no longer going to punish myself. I'm no longer going to sit in the corner and feel sorry for myself. And um yeah, it is quite liberating, and it's also a challenging journey. And so, yeah, just very, very, very grateful to be here and to be sharing with you and to have you reflecting back to me and taking all of us to a, a higher perspective of understanding. There's been so many times where I've thought it was only me that was going through all this. Isn't that?
Yeah, I know we all that's just part of the human condition, I think, and thank you, and also back at you as well, because this is mutual, and I appreciate that, but it's also this is a learning. I'm always learning and open, and when you were saying that, I have a beautiful friend who I'll do a podcast with soon, Belinda Jane, and she has this catchphrase is like, "I will no more, I can no longer," and
Mm,
every woman needs to reach that point in herself, whatever her circumstances that pertains to decide I'm either going to continue to put up with this shit or I'm going to change it. And if I don't change it, then I need to take responsibility on what the consequences will possibly be down the track
mhm,
as well. And as you said before, this is deep, dark work. And even sometimes what you and I, who've been doing this work and teaching it for so long, might see as very small or easy or simple steps can be like massive catharsis for people. So there's that too. That I think you've written the book brilliantly. I think it's simplistic in the best possible way, the way that you express and communicate, and the protocol, the practices that you've got in there. So just keep sitting in your own in your own heart space, which I'm sure you are as well, and just trusting that the as well as once you cross over the threshold of 50, there'll be even more fire and passion and self, realization and power that will move through your body as well, Kate. So that's something else that's coming through. As I said, no, I'm in my late 50s and I'll be 60 in a couple of years. And even then, my friends who are over that threshold, and also the women I know who are in their 70s, it just keeps getting better and deeper. And we just keep getting stronger and more powerful in a positive, not wielding power and dominating way, but just empowered the older that we get. And it's the complete contrast, as you well know, to what we're taught socially of how to behave and what's right and what's feminine and all that stuff. Keep make instead of the sacred you, it's the small you. We just keep perpetuating that, which is such a shame if we at this precipice of human consciousness and how everything is changing for men and women and our entire species and everything on the planet.
mm,
It's like, what have you got to lose? You only got to live for a certain amount of time, so just give it your best shot. Just play with it, really. That sense of curiosity, but also, playfulness too, as you say, with the bravery, the detachment of like, oh well, that didn't work. I'll try something else tomorrow. Quite
mm,
possible, you know.
mm. Well, and I think just to add to that, the only, the only, oh, how am I trying to say this? It's like reaching that softness for me. I think I've suppressed so much. And then so coming back into connection with myself and my own body and allowing myself to actually feel all of it and to go through that whole alchemical process, um, then only then, when I've been able to feel the fire, when I've been able to express the fire, on whether it be on a page or on a canvas or on a video that I may never post, or whatever it is. Um, but like allowing myself to go through all of that, and then I don't know whether it's softness that comes after that or whether it's just the exhaustion of feeling like I have to be better and better and better and better and better. And for just whatever it is, it's in the letting go, But I don't think that I would have. And so I am starting to experience more of a softness with myself, but I had to feel the fire first.
Oh yeah, well, I mean that's the ultimate transformative element out of all the five elements. Fire is the one that just burns shit to the ground. And you can't run around, and then the ashes are there. You can't go and reform them and just miraculously, bring it back. That's part of the natural, as you know, the earth cycle, that everything has to be honored in for the alchemic potential and gift that it offers. And maybe merging is a good word, Kate, because for me, in my own experience as well, the integration of that, it's the acceptance of all that I am, and that I'm still learning and exploring, and there's still more of me to appreciate and integrate and bring in and merge with, lean into, sort of thing. So we're again, it's the fatigue and the exhaustion and the collapse is what women are so used to, and men too in their own ways, of course.
Mm.
But it's like I always teach in yoga, like there's a very big difference between collapse and relax. And I see people and have for years come to yoga classes and they just completely melt on the floor when they, and we haven't even done anything yet. And they're just like, they drop their bundle quite literally on the mat and they're just collapsing. And then after, weeks or months or even years with some of my students working with me, now they can feel the difference in their body and they can learn to hold whatever is there with love and compassion, realizing also too that that's just a part of them that is experiencing that and it's not exactly who they are. It's not all of the story about them.
That's right.
You
I
know,
used to love my yoga teacher. I love that you're a yoga teacher as well. But I used to love my yoga teacher would say to me, relax into the discomfort.
they didn't have a little stick behind them at the same time, did they? Or I smack you. Now, grasshopper. Yeah. Oh, look, great conversation, Kate. We could do another, 2 or 3 podcasts with this, but I want to wrap it up with, in the book, your conclusion is called The Sacred You.
Mm.
So after everything this transition asks of a woman, the fire, the grief, the crazy, the reclamation, all of that, who is the sacred you that emerges on the other side?
Well, the sacred you, I think we've touched on it lightly throughout. Um, the sacred you is the woman who knows that she is sacred. She knows that she is a custodian. She knows that she has something of immense value to offer, whatever that may be, to whomever she's here to offer that to. And and the sacred you is somebody who has transformed her life and she's operating from that place of worthiness. So what would somebody who was what would the worthy Kate Whelan do? Well, she'd jump in here and have an amazing conversation with you. What would the if I'm holding myself as sacred, well, I'm going to go for a walk twice a day out in the beautiful sunshine, even if it's raining. Um, I'm going to remember the promise that or the whatever you want to call it, the mission that I've been handed many years ago. And so by saying the sacred no and reclaiming my self-worth and remembering myself as sacred, I'm now like at this turning point, and I'm like, oh, that's right. I've got this mission for our world's children. And it doesn't end here, like with the sacred no. The sacred no is just the beginning. Then the sacred you heads off into the world and starts, doing everything, the saying yes to everything that is in alignment with.
Yeah. Mm, I love that. It's like there's a series here, Kate. You know, the sacred me, the sacred no, the sacred you, the sacred us. Um, like you're only just beginning, my love.
I'm very excited. I mean, I do have a whole other project, which is a scalable well-being education model that I want in schools all across Australia. Like, I mean, I've got a lot to do. So I'm like, one of the things that I'm discovering about the sacred me is that, I have a big vision and it's massive, and just to scale it right back, what can I do today that will be honoring myself as sacred?
Yeah.
And even if it's just one thing, and that's how we start to build it up from there.
Yeah. It only ever has to be one thing, really, and that's how we become masters of mastering that one thing, and then that's just layer upon layer upon layer,
Mm.
and it all then that integrates. But that takes time, as you know. It's a rite of passage. There's a reason. I mean, I was even thinking the other day. just popped into my brain how we have perimenopause, that word which I really don't like to use, but we kind of have to because it's just what's universally understood. And then menopause, it's like, well, it's not. It's the one whole rite of passage. It's like when you write an article, you got the big, the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. So
Yeah.
even I don't even know where the word perimenopause came into it. Like menopause is, just it's that whole phase for a woman. It feels to me, I may be wrong, and I'd love for your response to this, and of course listeners can also write in and let me know that maybe the word peri was just tacked on so that whole allopathic model can increase their customer pool or resources to extend it because it's really just the one big thing.
I totally agree. It's the whole one big thing. And what with regards to, all the products and things, I mean, I'm just honestly, I'm not that person, but I'm also aware that a lot, like that's how we've been educated too. It's like, oh, you got to go and get your hormones. You got to go get your hormones checked, and then once you got your hormones checked, then you got to go get artificial hormones. And
Yeah,
I don't know anything about that because I haven't walked that path, and I'm not going to speak on it from a medical perspective because I don't, I haven't sort of done the due diligence on that. All I know is that in terms of treating myself as sacred, I'm and becoming more connected to my vessel. It's like, oh, if I eat that handful of chocolate before I go to bed, I'm going to wake up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. and I'm going to be sweating. But if I eat, a healthy dinner of veggies and tofu or whatever it is, and I have it a few hours before I go to bed with a nice glass of water, and that's the last thing I eat, the chances of sleeping through the night are much higher.
yeah.
Um, and so I definitely am not the person to say, don't believe everything that the doctors are going to tell you. But I mean, everyone's sort of on this whole perimenopause and menopause thing, and it's almost like it's come out of nowhere, like it's a big shock. Um,
Well,
and then here's all
Brent,
these solutions that we need to get, and it's like, no, this is the time to get present to
yeah. To
ourselves.
Yeah, totally. To listen to your body and and again, people can do what they want, of course, and you might need to use some sort of supplement or medication. I always like to say use those things sparsely, and temporarily, for whatever, whether it's mental health or perimenopause, menopause, whatever it's going on for people. Everyone has to make their own decisions. But I'll just say in wrapping up that for me, my sacred no and the way that I express my sacred self is that whenever I get those letters from the government that tell me that they're reminding me that I'm due for my pap smear or my mammogram or my bowel test, stool test thing, I just rip them up and put them in the bin. I don't even bother opening those letters. And that might resonate with some listeners and not with others, but I have been through enough and I have a deep enough relationship with my body to know that everything starts within me and the choices I make and the food that I eat, as you say, and the practices I do every day. And the illness, the dis-ease, I know where that starts energetically within myself. So I take responsibility for that. So I don't actually need to feed in. I used to a long time ago before this, of course. Again, that's the growth. But I don't feed into those narratives that seek to take, draw out or weaken my connection and relationship with my own sovereignty and my bodily autonomy. And that, unfortunately, is another podcast altogether. Well, fortunately, is another podcast
Yeah, I
altogether.
was about to say, because I mean, you're touching on there are things that I always have felt and have always thought about, and then you know we've had a lot of family members pass away from cancer, and so my mum has always been very diligent about reminding us of these things. Go and get this test and go and get that test, um, and I've always felt very deeply that I didn't want to do that, and I've also felt very deeply that if my body, if something happens, or it's my time to leave this earth, then well, that's my time. You know?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a it's a really interesting topic, and I will do a podcast on that because I think that's a really powerful and empowering, a potent conversation for women to have, because we do, again, it's been like, oh, we've got these predispositions, or we've got these genetic anomalies or distortions. And part of what this Wildfire Intention podcast is about reminding women that, we are expressions of the original medicine, and that Mother Nature always has a remedy, and that allopathic system, while there are parts of it that are good and useful, I do concede that, of course, sometimes you need surgery if your arm gets chopped off or whatever, some sort of intervention there, that they do have some very useful things. But in general, the allopathic system is the alternative and Mother Nature is the original. So
Mm.
I've just jotted down a note to get a podcast with that together. And maybe we do it as a panel with a few women who have got, as you say, it's in the family sort of thing. And you're living with that yoke over your head from a very young age. Like, it's almost like you conjure it in, you call it in.
Oh, look, I mean, I just thought about this the other day as I walked the streets, and I know you're trying to wrap up here, but when I don't know, every morning I take my dog for a walk, and this just crossed my mind that when I was like 10 or 11 or 12 or something, I had a natural gap between my two front teeth. And I had some sort of surgery, and I remember being awake for it. They must have just done like a local anesthetic in my mouth. And I remember watching them, do this. They removed a part of the skin and then pushed my two front teeth together. But like, it
Oh.
just it just went back to me, and I started crying because I'm like, why would they do that? Like, because my dog, right, I've rescued this dog, and he's a year and a half old, and someone found him abandoned in Alice Springs. He's 4 weeks old when they found him, and for me, like, he's survived, and he's just the most perfect being. And even the thought of, and this is going often a little bit of a different direction, but like, even the thought of removing his balls, is it's almost tragic to me. Like, I just can't even imagine doing it. And I know there are certain reasons why it might be a good idea, but I just haven't done it right now. And yeah, yeah. So this for me is touching on some very deep, um, yeah, DNA sort of
Stuff. Yeah.
uh,
Yep. And the testicle conversation, from a woman's perspective, would be maybe the hysterectomy or some other sort of surgical intervention there. And I mean, yeah, that's a big topic. But Kate, this has been awesome. Thank you. I keep saying I'm trying to wrap up, but then I start talking about something else as well. So I'm just it's been a fantastic sharing. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And yeah, I would love to do a little bit more with you. And as I said, I'll put all the show in the show notes, all the how people can get in touch with you and where they can purchase the book. But for me, this conversation, lots of and reading the book too, the main message for me is, like, I just want to really honor you for, taking this step forward and putting your heart, out there and sharing your wisdom, which is only going to grow and deepen and get stronger and flourish. So that's the main thing that's really moved me with your work and also with our conversation today. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you, everybody who's listening. If you've made it this far, big love.
Yeah, beautiful though. Thanks. So to you listening, I hope something in Kate's story found you where you are. Her honesty, her grief, and her sacred no are medicine for every woman who has ever hidden, loathed, or apologized for her body. You can find Kate's work and her tools for awakening, including the sacred no, in the show notes. I cannot recommend it highly enough. That's a wrap on today's episode of Wildfire. And if something in this conversation landed for you, sat with you, or lit something up inside or underneath you, I'd love for you to share it with a woman in your life you feel needs to hear it. Because that's how this medicine travels. Woman to woman, story to story, heart to heart. If you're ready to go deeper into your own midlife journey, come find me at dembysheather.com. The door to Mana Yoga Medicine is always open. And if today's conversation moved you, the most generous thing you can do is leave a review. It only takes a couple of minutes, and it helps Wildfire reach the women who need it most. Until next time, stay in your fire, stay on the rise, and remember, you are not burning out. You are becoming.